Welcome everyone to the Replenish Me radio show on radio actually and YouTube. And I'm Cordelia Gaffar, your host today. I help women to get from the chaos of wanting to be healthy to the calm of actually doing it. The purpose of my show is to give you strategies. A lot of times we don't even realize that our spouses and partners are also struggling with the things that we are. So I am honored to have a guest today who wants to share his story about becoming a new father. And, I talk a lot about my postpartum depression, but let's open the doors and talk about what happens to your spouse. So welcome to the show, Darren.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you opening up about this because this is really something that men don't talk about. I know my husband, he didn't even really know what was going on. I had to bring it to him. But just why don't we start with that? Tell me your story.
So my wife and I got married, wonderful. And at the time we weren't majorly talking about kids. And then at some point, like a foghorn started going off in her head. And she was just like, put a baby in me. And I was like, well, I didn't see this coming, naively. So I spent 6 months starting to filter in like the good kids, because when you don't have kids, all you hear are the bad kids in restaurants and running around. So I focused in like the cute father-daughter moments and things, and thought, and father-son moments, and thought, well, okay, let's have a child. This will be okay. And the pregnancy was fine. The labor was actually fine. There was no real complications. Still one of the most terrifying things I've ever witnessed, but on the scheme of things, it was okay. And my daughter was born. And from that moment on, I think things went downhill. I felt like I was in a massive bubble, like a colorless bubble. I could see my wife and her parents and my daughter having a wonderful time and being all excited, and I just couldn't quite connect to it. I really felt like it had been propaganda, that every father who said, oh, being a father is amazing, it's going to change your life, I genuinely thought they were lying. I thought that they had messed up their lives to such an extent, the only happiness they could get is by drawing other people into their hell. And I mean, my opinion has now changed, but back then I was out of it. I threw myself into my work and just kept distance. I'd say stupid things. I would say that when my daughter grows up, I don't want her to call me dad. I want her to call me Darren, which, like, now I think about that, I just think that's insane. And I was just very, I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted to like flip the board, the game of life, and start over. I just wanted it to all change. But thankfully I had, good people around me. Someone at work spotted that I wasn't talking quite as if you would expect a new father to talk. And then suggested I go to the doctors. But because, I'm a media lecturer, so I study how the media impacts us. And I'm a martial artist as well, so I study managing my emotions. Usually it's kind of fear and frustration and things. So I'm quite content. I accept that as men, we have a lot of negative emotions in us, and we're terrible at admitting it and dealing with it. So I was like, okay, I'm happy to go to the doctors. And the doctor said, yep, I'm going to diagnose you. You've got post-natal depression, and you've got some trauma from witnessing the birth. And what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I am man. I am strong. I'll deal with this on my own. Thank you, doctor. Don't you worry. I don't need your antidepressants. I'll crack this on my own. Because I was just delighted that I wasn't a bad person. I was like, I'm ill. Okay, I can deal with this. So she was born in January. I think I was diagnosed in February. I then set about pretty much destroying my life until November, not getting it in check in any way. And then went all in to try and get it under control in November. And then thankfully, she'll be 2 in January. And I think the January of this year, I really started to get it in check. And it's been amazing since.
Wow, that's quite a journey. So, but the one thing I agree with you there is that I didn't take antidepressants myself. So I think, doctors, they always want to give us a Band-Aid, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I did end up going on them, but I don't know if they helped. But it was at the point where I needed to give a signal to my family that I was willing to do everything. And they had been urging me to. So I just thought, okay. But I did a lot of other things as well. I dramatically changed my diet. I went on something called a ketogenic or ketogenic, which means, no sugar, loads of fat, and very limited carbs. And after 2 weeks of that, your mood tends to elevate and you feel really great and lots of energy. But also, it also means, I'm not sure how true this is. This is the first time I've said this, but I wonder if there's elements of like an eating disorder mixed in with going on an extreme diet, because it's a control thing, and I could control my diet, or I can control, a 5-month-old. So, but it certainly made me feel better, and I felt healthy. I came off it in the end, but that certainly helped. I went on a course for Neurolinguistic programming, and that really helped. That helped mainly get my ego in check. So then when I remember day one, just from the first day, it was an 8-day course. I went home to my wife and just started to talk to her. It sounds so lame. I just started to listen to what my wife was saying. And amazingly, that works.
Yeah, communication is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knew?
And, yeah, exactly. And bit by bit, I got it under control.
That's amazing. So basically, you would say you tried so many things, but you think you've nailed it down to just the neuro-linguistic programming, definitely, because you realized you had an ego issue.
Yeah.
That helped you to better communicate with your wife.
Yeah.
You're not too sure about the food bit, but I'm sure that food had a large part in it, right?
Absolutely. Because I started to feel good. I think a lot of things happened at the same time. I kicked into ketosis, I think it's called, in about 2 weeks, and I felt amazing on that day. That was the same day that I first started taking antidepressants. But antidepressants take, weeks, if not months, to kick in. It's not day one. And I went on that course like the day after. So all these things happened at the same time. But neurolinguistic programming, this idea that, and there's philosophers that say this kind of thing, and Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean says the same thing. It's not the problem, it's your opinion, not the problem. And if you can manage how you perceive the world, then you can control your own happiness. Because nothing external can impact you. And I found it incredibly helpful in so many different ways, even down to like mindfulness. So, which also started to make more sense in martial arts as well. But if I'm rocking my daughter to sleep at 3 a.m, you can start to panic and be like, okay, how much sleep am I going to get? If she can go to sleep in half an hour, how much sleep can I get then? And how tired will I be at work? And I've got that meeting. Is my boss going to yell at me if I oversleep? Or is there something wrong with her? When do I go to the hospital? And all this stuff just makes you tense and stops you being a father at that point. So then you relax, and all that other stuff is in the future. Doesn't matter. So I relax my body. I slow down my breathing. I focus on the fact I'm holding my daughter.
Yes. I
relax, she relaxes. When she relaxes, she falls asleep.
Amazing how that works.
Exactly. Yeah. So neurolinguistic programming. There's lots more kind of elements to it that I draw on, but definitely another real good hack that I learned is just choosing your language. And literally, the word "choose" is so much more important. It's not like, oh my God, I have to get up because my daughter's crying. It's I'm choose to get up because my daughter's crying. Because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go to work. You don't. I don't have to stay. This is another big thing we had. I think we had my wife and I had, I think, about 4 divorce talks.
Yep, I know those.
And what really helped is we mapped out the separation. And then we got to the point where it's like, okay, we are choosing to stay together and see if we can deal with this. We are not here because we're trapped. We're not here because we don't know how our separate lives would be. We're not together just because we don't know how we would live separately. We planned it out, and actually it was kind of quite a cool life, but it was separate. So yeah, we chose to stay together. And if you choose to do things, it's an empowering word, because words are like spells, they're magic. If you say choose, you stand tall and you're strong. And if it's like, oh, I have to, it's just, even that, just I have to. You don't have to do anything.
Right? Like we both go down when we say that, yeah.
Exactly right.
I want to pull this piece out that you were just talking about, how this is really important, and I should have brought this out in another interview that I'm thinking about now, but anyway, I'm going to stay present. So when you are going through these really dramatic periods where you as an individual in the marriage, right?
Yeah.
Just can't deal, and you feel like you need to be separate. It is a very good communication tool that you're coming up with there, where you guys actually mapped out what would your lives look like. And I didn't really think about this before, but when me and my husband had, the same kind of issue when he was going through this, that's kind of what we did. We talked for 2 hours of what that would look like.
Yeah,
And then we're like, okay, we choose to keep working at this, and we're going to make it happen. And, it is what it is. I wouldn't say it's great, right? But it's work.
Yeah. And we tried, this was more so when I was coming out of it, we then started to think about vision boards, because it's like, well, okay, if we're choosing to be in this, where is this going to be in 1 year, 2 year, 10 years? And so we started to imagine, very similar to the house we moved into, and we started to imagine jobs that we're going to have and the types of things we're going to do with our daughter, because we want to make sure we're heading in the same direction.
Yeah.
But the conversations are not good. It's, I think my wife said, if I met you now, I don't think I'd fall in love with you. It's like, oh, that's an emotion. There's an emotional response in my heart. But you can't let that then allow you to respond emotionally. Like the appropriate response to that is not anger or hate or frustration. Yeah. It's a legitimate statement and a legitimate feeling that she had.
Well, really, the whole conversation, Darren, right, is more of a strategy session, right? Just like you would do with a business partner, because that's what marriage is, right? At the end of the game, we all have this dreamy thing that we're fed in the media, that it's all roses and, skipping into the sunset. But at the end of the day, it's 90% a strategic partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, I quite like seeing it as bad guy stuff, but I quite like seeing it as like a military battle, because then I feel like a warrior, a soldier. And so there's a great book, and it's called Commando Dad, that I got, and it talks about taking like the nappy bins out is bomb disposal. And I was like, I'll be in charge of bomb disposal, no problem there, that's fine. And I'll secure the perimeter, I'll check the house is locked up at night, and anything that made me feel like a warrior. I mean, it sounds lame talking about it, but it got me through. And
whatever works.
There's this great moment I had with my daughter where she was holding my hand and she led me out into the hallway, and it was all dark, and she paused and looked into the dark and clearly did not like it. So she runs back into the living room and she rummages around in her toys, and there's lots of different colored balls, and she finds a purple ball, and she kind of does this little nod. She must have been 18 months or something, and then she grabs my hand and we run into the dark together. And I remember thinking, what is that purple ball to you? It's clearly got some magical power that it's just giving you all this confidence. And I learned from that. I then started doing the same thing. You can get anchoring techniques, like any hero in a movie armors up. Batman puts his suit on. So I wear just this leather cuff. It's an anxiety anchor for me. Makes me feel a little bit stronger. Reminds me to be strong. But I learned that from my daughter. You're allowed to be silly if it gets you through the day.
Absolutely. Live. And actually, I find that children are the best teachers. I mean, they humble us, they empower us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they make us better people. So yes. I appreciate that. So now how did your experience come full circle into what you're doing now? It is what you do for your business, right?
Yeah, I started it. To start with, I realized, because I'd worked in education for, I think, 10 years, and I'd seen mental health issues rise with my own students over the years. So whether it's, self-harming, suicide, anxiety, depression, eating disorders. And I realized I'd developed learned all these tools that my students could really do with. So I started just doing, in classes, I'd be doing little workshops, so whether it's communication workshops or anything, and just drip feeding things in. I then wrote a book called Level Up Your Teens, which, it can help anyone, but I wanted to help teenagers because that's who I work with. And they're on the cusp of greatness. They're going to go into this amazing world and they can achieve anything, but it's all self-limiting beliefs and being made to feel bad because, annoyingly, there is money in their unhappiness and there's money in our unhappiness. We buy things to be happy. We buy silly, technology or expensive clothes to make us feel happy, whereas we get to control what's in our minds. So I thought I was going to be a life coach. Lots of people were saying, "Oh, you should be a life coach and you can be a motivational speaker." And I was like, "Okay, that's okay." But because I teach media, and there's a link, I suppose, with fully engaging in the real world, and the real modern world is online, like video communication and social media. And I remember holding my daughter and thinking, I haven't brought her into this world to work 40 or 50 hours a week doing a job that she hates. How can we, which means no parent brought their child into the world to do that. So how can we best deal with that? And the biggest thing is to get people to engage with social media and things like personal branding more, because you then can identify your goals and values. You can work out what your passion is, what your love is, and then you can start to put it out there, maybe in the background to start with, until you get to a point where you can monetize. And then you monetize it so you can help more people, because your mission is in line with your goals and values. So it ended up turning into a consultancy role, because I've been running kind of social media workshops anyway. But there's a big element of coaching, because the thing stopping us from winning at life is usually, may not be diagnosable anxiety, but definitely anxiety. It may not be diagnosable depression, but there's elements of it, and it's self-limiting beliefs. And if we can get over those, we can engage with the modern world fully. And if you can engage with it now, you can achieve anything. Like whether it's your ideal client or ideal partner, if your ideal client or partner is 1 in a million, that means there's 7.5 million on the planet, because there's like 7.5 billion people.
Right.
That's more than enough, but you need to think globally. And because I'm trying to train my students to live in the world is changing. Like, they're going to be working in 2040. I've got no clue what 2040 is. I don't know what jobs are going to be available then.
Right.
Likewise with my daughter, how am I preparing her? If she's like coming up to 2 now, she's going to be alive in like 2060, 2070. I don't know how I could do that other than help her and encourage others to engage with modern technology, invest in themselves, and be able to pivot really quickly in their career, because you're probably going to change careers a lot. And we certainly don't want to be in a job where we're unhappy, and in a job where we can be made redundant in a heartbeat, because it's cost effective for a business. I know that was kind of a long answer, wasn't it? I bounced around different things. But,
no, I like it. You made me think about a lot of different things. I'm trying to pull out what is the top thing. So I will just say, as a mother with teenagers, right? We're like right there. In fact, my 7-year-old, she's just made a world-changing decision to join the Navy.
Nice.
Not quite what I was expecting, but that's her decision, and I'm really proud of her. And but even in that, what they're looking for are women in STEM.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're right. And I think to myself, I was trying to protect her for a long time from social media and technology, because, right, we're thinking we don't want them out there. But she's like, Mom, you raised me well. I know how to make the right decisions. And, this is look at my digital profile. Exactly.
And social media is a tool. And the problem is that media is seen as a soft subject. So it's not really taught in school early enough at all, whereas it should be taught in primary school, and saying that you're going to go into the media is like, we're goldfish swimming in water, but we're humans swimming in media. At age 6, it should be like, this is an image. This is a fake image. This is manipulated. You cannot compare your own body with this image, because that's crazy. But we don't do that. And teenagers have, digital natives have grown up in a world where they don't really trust the government, because there's so many conspiracy theories out there. They don't trust the media, because the media has its own agenda. They don't know what to believe or what to do. So they're just stumbling their way through. And it's tough. And it's tough as parents to stay up to date with technology, because it seems strange. I have conversations with my students' parents, and they don't understand that they can just make money gaming. I mean, they need to be strategic about it. They can't just go online and play games and money will come flowing in. But that's a viable business now. Yes. Even if it's only for 4 years, 5 years, and then they pivot onto something else, and then they pivot onto something else. And this idea that we, go to school, go to uni, get a job, and that's it for the next 50 years, that's not there. And it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
That would be a boring life.
And it's outdated life. And,
Yeah.
that's why I chose to homeschool, which I think has helped her.
I'm pleased you say that, because when I'm anxious, when I have the anxiety, I have almost panic attacks about having arguments with my daughter's head teacher with our principal in 12 years. And I keep pulling in data where it says, because the education systems in the West are broken. And if we look at the education systems that are on the top of the league table, usually kind of like places like Finland and Iceland, they have hardly any school time. I think it's 20 hours or 15 hours a week, like 3 hours, 4 hours a day, including lunchtime. Some of them are getting rid of subjects. So instead of doing maths, it's like, we're going to go in the garden today. We're going to just plant, flowers. But they're learning how to measure out, water and peat. They're learning about the biology and science and language and probably Latin names. Learning all this stuff, but they don't know they're learning it, and they're just having fun. Mm-hmm. And they don't set homework. And yet in our cultures, we set tons of homework to the point that it's given our children mental health issues. We emphasize exams to the point that they are sometimes getting suicidal. They're crying when they get exam results. And it's just an exam result. Yeah. So in my mind, the second my daughter has a bad experience and I see her mental health failing, or even her happiness being dented, I want to be in a position where I can pull her out and homeschool. And I'm educating myself about the homeschooling world. So I think it's definitely good to have that in your kind of tool box.
Yeah, it's a great backup tool. I did not go into parenting thinking that I would homeschool. Like you said, I mean, the first bad experience my now 17-year-old had when she was like 4.
Yeah.
I was like, they were trying to tell me that she was autistic, right? But that wasn't the case. So anyway, I'm noticing behind you have lots of books.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you use that with your students, right? We talk a lot about technology and where to find like the real sources of information. Do you encourage them to actually read books ever?
Absolutely, because for the first time probably ever, they can reach out and talk to the author in a heartbeat. And they can just tweet them on Twitter or send them a Facebook message, and they can talk to. And this stuns me. And I'm like, your favorite authors are right there. And I really encourage them to watch TED Talks. You know what those are? The TED.com talks. It's like thought leaders just talking about how to fix the world, usually around entertainment, technology, design, I think it is. And most people who do a TED Talk will have a book. So it's a way of moving towards them. And I think a lot of the time, reading is just good for your mental health. It just is. And I read more when I was fighting depression than ever before, and I've continued to do that. And I think there's some great books where it was almost a mixture. I've read a couple of books that really enabled me to manage my mental health, like stunning books. There's one called The Chimp Paradox, which is about how your brain, you can kind of categorize it. So there's the computer, the human, and the monkey. And the monkey's just a struggle, very badly behaved. The monkey is the thing that wants like attention and a tribe and friends and food and water and sleep. And if it doesn't get it, it affects your mood. And it's really strong at night as well, which is why you can be awakened at 2 a.m, because the monkey's running things. And then you wake up, the human comes online, and you're saying, what were we worried about? But I feel that now. So when I feel my mental health failing, I'm immediately think, right, I need to sort out the monkey. So what does he need? Let's get some food into me. Let's get some water. Let's do some exercise. So that was a good book. There's another book by Matt Haig called Reasons to Stay Alive. That's very short. Some chapters are just bullet points, and it talks about his depression and anxiety. And I just found that just inspirational, just in terms of not feeling alone. That felt amazing. And there's been others since, like Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, just about leaning into stress and not being put off. But yeah, so the answer to the question is I absolutely recommend them to read books. I've got tons of them that I guess are on my recommended reading list. Doesn't always work though, but I definitely recommend that they read. And I think there's a myth that teenagers don't read, but they really do. And they get very, very passionate about the authors that they do read. And then they can reach out to them.
Yeah, I was taking some notes. I was trying to capture all the books you mentioned. I hear, that's funny because I never heard of the Chimp paradox.
Yes.
And I hear people all the time talk about monkey brain, and I'm like, what's that about? So, okay, I'm going to have to find that book. Yeah,
it's by like a professor, and he's trained, I think it's like Olympic athletes and really high level sports people. And it's fascinating. There's more to it, but he also talks about core beliefs, like the monkey and the human refer to the computer about how things should be. So my wife has this thing that life should be fair. It's one of her core programs, that life should be fair. So whenever life isn't fair, either if she's thinking with the monkey part or the human part, both are getting annoyed, because it's like, life should be fair. There are rules. And I guess I had that same ideal, but I reprogrammed myself a little bit by looking at things that I should be grateful for. And I realized that life is not fair. And actually, it's massively unfair in my favor. And I've got nothing to complain about. So now when things go wrong, or I think it's unfair, it doesn't bother me. It's I've got enough things going for me to not worry.
Yes, that's something to think about, and that's a very key point to understand, since you're raising a daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also that quest of making the world a better place, because I can worry, but it's one of the reasons I talk so openly about my experience, because the things that have caused me the most pain in life are things that I think I would have been better prepared for. So with our first child, we actually had a miscarriage pretty early on. I think we'd quite hit 3 months, very early on. We weren't prepared for that. We assumed you have miscarriages if you kind of drink or smoke during pregnancy. We thought that happened to other people. And we were planning Christmas with a child, and we had names. I know, right? Way too early to be doing that, but I didn't know. And that hurt. That really hurt, and still hurts. And once we started talking about it, people would say, "Oh, I had 2 miscarriages." And, "Oh yeah, we had a miscarriage." And it's like, well, a heads up would have been nice. And same with postnatal depression. I didn't know that was a thing. So I just share anything I can to try and create, it's kind of leading by example, I suppose, but try and get other people to share their wounds. And it is heroic to share your wounds. And I'm obsessed with film. Obviously, I teach film. But all heroes have a flaw, a weakness. So Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes. Chief Brody in Jaws is afraid of water. There's, in the first Die Hard, John McClane is crying in a toilet, picking glass out of his feet. Because they have fears and show their vulnerability, we love them more as heroes. As soon as you get a hero that's invulnerable, like Superman's not a very interesting character, because it's like, well, you're basically invincible. Batman is much more popular because he's much more complex. He's got serious issues as well. And once you share your weaknesses, I think life's easier to deal with. It's about, one of the things I had to deal with the teenagers I teach is, are they wearing masks? So are they wearing a mask for their parents? Are they wearing a different mask for their friends, a different mask at work? And we try and blend in, because I think as humans we're programmed to be kind of tribal and to fit in. And that means you're always giving up a bit of yourself. Whereas if you work out who you are, and I really recommend tons of personality tests. I did lots to work out who I was. What I think is important to me, what my goals and values are, then I can get rid of the mask and say, well, this is just me. And I know people have unfriended me on Facebook, or they unfollow me because it's like, oh, that's Darren going on about that again. So yeah, this is actually just me now. Like this conversation I'm having, I would have, with my parents, or I will go into school, into college next week, and no doubt say the same stuff. This is what I talk about now. And it's much more empowering, because it incrementally makes the world a little bit of a better place. And if we all do it together, maybe we can create change with the corporations and the governments.
Yes, I like how you're saying to really connect on a human level, and really see the humanity in each other, because that's what draws us to each other, right?
Absolutely. And if I say to someone, oh, I had depression or anxiety, and they have a negative comment about that makes them a rather mean, ignorant person. That's nothing to do with me. And it's part of a little bit of NLP. Like I think there's a Stoic philosopher who said that somebody stole his lantern, and he's like, well, that hasn't harmed me in any way. I still have my compassion and my kindness and my integrity, but that person's become a thief, and I feel sorry for them. And I think the same way, or try to think the same way, that if you share your vulnerability and somebody takes advantage of it or mocks you, that's all on them. That's nothing to do with you. It's and if you think about your best friends, the people you're most connected to, that happened because you shared more with them, and they know all your lows. And like I said, my brother's a War Marine, and he was the best man at my wedding. And when I asked him, I was like, I understand that I won't be your best man. I understand it will be a War Marine. And he was like, yeah, I love you, bro. But I was like, I get it. Like, they've seen each other at their worst, when they're the most scared, when they've had breakdowns. Like, that seeing each other's vulnerability allows people to fall in love with you and to care for you. And it's the most beautiful thing about this experience, is kind of life. And yet we put up all these shields and try and hide, and we shouldn't be.
Absolutely not. I love that. So, wow, so many jokes here today. I want you to say this thing. We talked a little bit before, right?
Sure.
So, there are two things, and you've mentioned it, that people don't talk about. They don't talk about the miscarriages, and they don't talk about the postnatal depression for the father and for the mother.
Yeah.
But what is it that you truly think that if men were having babies, what would happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I'm so stunned by what my wife went through, and my ego got involved. Like, this isn't about me, and I don't know what to do. But if the patriarchy was still in place, or it's still, as it is now, and men were the ones who got pregnant, we would have like fairs. We'd have trophies. We'd have medals. It would be the 24/7 news. We would have so much time off. We would have anything that we wanted. It would be insane. The men, we could not deal with pregnancy and giving birth. And I find it interesting because I teach martial arts and military family, again, I might have mentioned, but sometimes you come across these very like growy men, and they're like, I'm going to fight in a cage so I can prove my manhood. I'm going to climb this mountain to prove my manhood. It's like, dude, do anything you like. You're not even going to come close to what a woman achieves when they carry a baby and give birth to that baby. Just don't compete. And our birth was fine. Like, I've since been made aware of, that a cesarean is like major surgery, and that's terrifying to me. Yeah. And the things that can go wrong, or if you have twins, even going home like with a child and having a 2-year-old already there, like, how do you cope? I don't understand. Like, if we didn't have 2-on-1 zoning, our daughter would have just crushed us by now. Like, we needed to tag team her. If you got more than one, I don't even understand how you would deal with that. That's crazy. Yeah. So yeah. Basically, I want my trophy.
You heard it here, straight from a father's mouth. So
and the level of this is more for my wife, but her compassion and caring, insane. And how quickly she forgot the pain of labor. It just went. And like a few months later, she was like, do you think we'll have another? I was like, no, do you remember what we went through? And she was like, no, but look at what we got. I was like, yeah. Well, I was in a horror movie. I don't know what movie you were in. You were clearly in a kind of like romantic comedy where you got a nice Christmas present or something. But yeah, that was not a nice experience for me. And we won the jackpot. We were lucky. It was the pregnancy went well. The labor went well. Evie's wonderful. She's healthy. I don't know how we would have coped if there'd been a complication, or I still to this day don't understand. I think regularly I don't understand how single parents do this. I just don't understand it. I'm building up my fatherhood experience, my skills. Like, I've got a day to myself. I think tomorrow I am doing a whole day and night on my own, which happens occasionally. But this is a big quest. I'm bracing myself for this, because there's been times when I'm on my own and she won't sleep, and I just feel like crying. And I just think, and like, if you know someone who's a single parent, you don't need to go in and be like, I'll babysit for like 4 hours. You can just go around and say, you don't need to talk to me. I'm just going to go do the washing up for you. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go. Like, that would be amazing. That would be amazing with us, and there's two of us, but little things like that. Or even just, okay, I'm going to hold your son or daughter for 10 minutes just so you can go to the toilet. Like, it's little things like that. Like friends and family, people who have a newborn, the smallest things can make such a big impact. And yeah, like, big props to single parents, because if we didn't have, we've got, my wife and I together, and we've got an extended family. We've got her parents who are who live very close nearby. It's I'm getting to the point where I'm almost going to start offering to help. I'm not quite there yet, because it's weird, because I'm kind of a tall guy. But if I see somebody like in a shop or in a cafe, and they've got a newborn, and I can see their, even small thing, like they've got to their table. Like, if I can go up and be like, hey, I'm Darren, I'm a new father myself. Do you want to sit here? I'll go order the food for you and bring it back, because you've got your hands full. Like, little things like that. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know how well that would go down, but I'm more likely to do it if my wife's there or my daughter's there. But I'd like to be the type of person who does that.
Yes, that's massive. I've muted myself because my 3-year-old is doing her thing right now. So, but it looks like one of my teenagers got her. So
nice. That's handy. That makes sense.
I do remember being on the other end, and I'm listening to you, and it's true. I mean, like, when I'm in the grocery store, I mentioned this yesterday, I think, in a live, that if I see a woman and she has her brand new baby, and even if she has 3 items and I've got like a full cart and 3 kids with me, I'm like, look, please go in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I've been there, and I'm just like, you just never know. Baby's crying. And, it makes me so angry when I see people like, can she show up? I'm like, you have the baby's communicating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And she's like already trying to work out other stuff, right? Because you're in the grocery store, and whatever's on. Did I get everything on the list?
And then my wife would get self-conscious, so she's like, it went away, but this is going to sound bad, but she's been out of the house in what she would class as a state she would never have before let anyone witness. Like, going out and like maybe haven't showered for a couple of days, like baby vomit all over her. It's a quest. It's a big quest just to get out of the house, and to then find people kind of rolling their eyes or feeling bad because somebody doesn't like your child crying. Yeah, we need it. It's almost a cultural change. We just need to treat, maybe this is too far, but treat women as though they have returned from conflict, from a war, because they have. I think Spartan warriors, I think if the men lost their shield in battle, they wouldn't get a grave or something like that. They wouldn't get a tombstone. But women would get a tombstone if they died in childbirth. And I was like, something like that. They were honored in some way. And I thought that was a cool thing for them to do. They recognized it was the equivalent. I think it's a bit higher than, but the equivalent of conflict, of war. Yeah,
it's a lot. So I like all these takeaways. I want to ask you, do you want to start a revolution?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're all trying to start our own. That's a beautiful thing about the modern world. We're trying to start our own, aren't we? I was always a feminist anyway. Now I've got a daughter, that's just gone through the roof. It's insane. But because feminism is great, feminism allows me to talk about my depression because I don't have to fit in this man box where I have to be strong all the time. It allows me to, cut back my work hours to be a stay-at-home dad 2 days a week on my own. Feminism allows me to do that. It's not seen as anything bad. And a revolution of fighting the patriarchy and fighting depression. Did you have something in particular in mind though?
with your passion regarding your business.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. And I do, that's the feedback, like whenever I do consultancy, if it's getting somebody to set up a business or find more clients, the feedback's always like, it gave us really good tips about social media and personal branding and leadership. But he really coached me to get excited about living life and to step out of my comfort zone and to not be afraid. And they have this new energy about them. And that's a really nice thing to be able to do. But we've got to, it just keeps coming back to it. You've got to do your bit to make the world a better place. And it comes down to like, love or hate. Are your decisions based on love or hate? And if you put it down to that, it also helps with politics. And I have issues with, there's a lot of politics in the UK right now. There's a lot of, I guess, xenophobia and nationalism. And that stuns me, because I think, how can you look at like a refugee baby and be like, oh, they don't belong in this country? It's like, wait, what? I don't belong in this country just because my mother randomly gave birth to me. It's the whole idea of countries I find weird. Or at some point somebody came along and drew a line and said, okay, for you to go from that side of the line to this side of the line, you have to show me your papers. That doesn't feel right. And I just think if you can see past, again, the media training, and see past, color, religion, nationality, it's just babies who have all grown up. It's just,
that's who we are.
It's just, you got to reach out and help. But it's easier to hate. It's easier to have anger. It's easier to blame. It's really intoxicating as well. It's harder to be motivated by love and to take responsibility for your own actions. It's harder to do that. Again, like this movies with me, so Star Wars, it's like dark side, light side. I think Yoda says a line about the dark side being faster and more contagious or something like that. Right. And that's what it is. But love is the answer.
It is massive. Well, I want to real quickly ask you regarding your business. Do you have any events coming up?
At the moment, I've been subtly building it in the background. So my website's almost ready to go at darrenhorn.com. I think in my mind, I've got a launch date for January. But I'm going to have to work it around my other 2 jobs. But I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to start doing it. In terms of projects, at the moment, I keep writing for a couple of sites. I'm writing for all down to my goals and values, which I love. So I write for a site called leadx.org, which tries to help millennials get 1% better each day, which brilliant. We should always be growing. Occasionally write for The Mighty as a health and mental health advocate, and I write for the Good Men Project, generally around mental health, but also life hacks and social media and personal branding. I've been asked to write a chapter on tips for dealing with teenagers for parents for an anthology book, so I need to get that written. And then I just need to decide what my next thing is. It's probably going to be, I feel like I should write a very quick book on postnatal depression from my point of view. Just a very short one and just get it out there, because I don't think that book exists.
Not for me.
No, so I can do that. Maybe a book on social media anxiety. But then I think I'm going to do a video course. One of my students said the nicest things when I was going to write the book. And we'd had this whole session where I was being motivatory and being like, you can achieve anything any other human being has ever achieved. It's just your limiting beliefs that stopped you. You can build a side hustle and turn your passion into a viable business. And she said, every college should have one of you in there. And I was like, okay. Well, how can I get to these other colleges? So that's how I wrote the book. And now I think I've learned a lot through video courses. So I'd like to create a video course. And there's a big danger that we all fall into, is we assume that everyone knows what we know, and it's not the case. And it doesn't matter what it's about. Like whether my brother's in the military, so he thinks everyone has that same lifestyle. I'm like, this is what you do is unique and kind of weird, and your stories are fascinating. Like, you're in what country? I don't even know what that is. Same with social media. Same with managing your mind. We're not taught that. It's emotional intelligence. We're not taught that at school. And so then you think, well, what's your new voice? Why do you need, this book's already out on it. But that's then comes down to branding, is that we all latch on to somebody that we have that connection with. And it's the same with mentors, and films even. Like, my wife loves the Harry Potter books and films, mainly the books. Like, it's good I corrected myself there. And so she'll quote Dumbledore at me. Apparently he's very wise, and if I just listened to Dumbledore more, I would have got through this quicker. But you seek out the energy you like, in terms of who's out there. So for a while I was listening to a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who's very high energy and stuff. So for a while I listened to Tony Robbins, and you move around different energies. So your voice, even if you're saying the same thing other people are saying, you're saying it in a different frequency, you know, and you're going to connect to different people because of it. So add your voices to the discussion.
I love that. So yes, as you're starting to wrap it up for us, I don't even know like where we would begin on like what are three takeaways. I feel like I'm robbing people by asking you for only 3. You've got like so much.
Sure, I can do, yeah, because I've covered a few, but there's a nice, I can add something original that I haven't covered so far in this. Is playing life is to a certain extent a game. I think there's thought leaders like Elon Musk who are saying that there's a 33% chance this is a simulation. And, you know, maybe it is, you know, technology doubles every year. So there's 2 hacks that I find helpful. One is not everything has to be true all of the time. So sometimes when I'm feeling small, I imagine that all of this is a simulation and it only exists for my pleasure. And I'm the only person who exists in the world. And my ego is sometimes useful. So I feel very strong. Other times I need perspective. So I do the kind of Google Earth thing where I imagine just how tiny I am and the timeline of my life is insignificant. And I realize that actually the universe is not out to get me. It's not planning. It's not waking up in the morning and planning to make my life harder. You know, there's not a guy getting in his car now planning to cut me up on the road later today. Nothing's planned like that. So, and then when I, spent quite a lot of time playing games, like role-playing games. So that's one. One is not everything has to be true, and sometimes the world's all about you, sometimes it isn't. Another is talk to people. So when I play a game, a role-playing game, I'll go to a town and I'll talk to everybody in the town. They're called non-player characters, just in case they give me new information or a quest. But I'll go to a party and I'll talk to the 2 same people. Like I haven't spoken to my neighbors yet. That's weird. Like there's so many other people I need to engage with because there's connections to be made. And it's the same with exploring. In a game, I'll explore all I can of the world because I want to get value out of it. I've spent £40 on it. I need to explore every single corner of it. So, well, I get one life. Why aren't I exploring more things? Why aren't I exploring new areas on the planet? Why aren't I exploring new hobbies? Particularly if you haven't found your love yet, your passion, your thing that creates a flow state where you start it and then wake up 4 hours later and, oh, where did time go? You should be tasting everything. If you haven't tried ceramics, go do ceramics this weekend. If you haven't tried archery, go do archery. If you haven't tried, I'm quite looking forward to doing the science kits with my daughter because maybe that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's 3 now, but it's certainly talk to more people. Taste more things, particularly if you haven't found your passion, and not everything has to be true all the time.
Okay, that's 3.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny, the taste more things thing, because I was actually talking to someone recently, and she was saying, I was telling her how I try and I go to all these different places to meet different types of people, even if, they may be xenophobic people, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why would you do that? Is your business a hobby? And I'm like, no, this is why I do it, to get outside of my comfort zone.
And like we had when we had the elections in this country, it was and they said, people would say, oh, I don't know how that's the outcome because all of my friends voted this way. It's like, yeah, your view's distorted. And so on Facebook right now, there are people who post things that I just absolutely disagree with. But I need to know those opinions are out there. Otherwise, my view of the world is distorted. Right. And maybe, just maybe, they are following me. And maybe my posts can help educate or entertain or something. But you can't just close the doors and be like, that world doesn't exist. They're there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it particularly recently, this last kind of 6 months, I've connected with people kind of all around the world. And it's been a much nicer, healthier experience.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things with social media as well. Like you can people have such weird perceptions of what other cultures are like. And it's just like, find someone on Twitter and ask them. Same with the news. You want to know what's going on in wherever? Find someone on Twitter and ask them.
Yeah.
There's people living there, they can tell you.
A lot of people living there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thank you so much for your time today, Darren.
It's a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed it.
Clearly, we could talk for hours.
Yes.
Right now, I really wanted to talk to you anyway, because it's taken me 2 years to really decide to publish my book on pregnancy, which covers all that stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So.
And what's amazing with that is, I'm glad you're doing that, because if you genuinely feel as though your book can help just one person, and I'm sure it will help more, but if it could help just one person, it's really selfish of you not to publish it.
I've been told that once or twice.
Absolutely. Got to get it out there.
Yeah. And now you've inspired me to actually do that. Just press the button.
And there's no gatekeepers anymore. Like we're not really taught things at school about how to achieve things, but there's no one stopping you. It used to be you'd need publishers, and that's not true anymore. And actually you need to almost guarantee that you're going to sell a lot in order to get a publisher. But you can self-publish with ease. Like, everyone has a book in them, and all you have to do is write it and then upload a Word document to Amazon, and it will appear. Sure, you can faff around a little bit, and you can maybe get a book template, and you can get someone to design a cover. You don't need to. It could just be white with a black title and a Word document. Honestly, if anyone's listening and is making it more complicated than that, you're wrong. Go write your book. It's your perception of the world. Your voice is unique, and it's worth putting out there. And you'll feel nice. It's a nice feeling publishing a book. Gets you invited on podcasts and things.
Well, thank you so much, Darren, for being here today. And thank you, listeners and viewers. If you want to connect with Darren, I'll have all his contact details below this video, and if you're listening to the podcast, below the podcast. And
I'm on all social media. You can find me everywhere. It's
as Darren Horn, right? With an E.
Yes, with an E. Yes. Yeah, they had fun with that when I was a kid.
All right. Well, have an amazing day, and thank you so much.
You too. Thank you so much.